Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the room. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to the audience. So we've got another Mentimeter for you all. We're going to talk about optimism. Optimism is how we are hopeful and have confidence for the future success. So how do you rate your level of optimism? Some mediums, but most of you have high optimism, which is great. So 7 of you are high optimism, 4 medium, and then we got a few low. And depending on our situation and our scenarios, our optimism may change because we may, and we're going to talk about confidence here in a minute, but it may be something that we know we're good at and we can dust ourselves off and get up. And then there's other things where it's like, and we talked about this in our ASA session about imposter syndrome and, can we really do the things we can? And you can. So how would you all rate your optimism?
I would say I'm probably on the higher spectrum of being more positive, maybe even too positive to a fault, I think sometimes. I took the Clifton Strengths Finder assessment a couple years ago, and that was, positivity was one of my strengths, and kind of understanding it, I do understand how it can be a blind spot and kind of put on blinders, but at the end of the day, I think I'm pretty thankful I think it helps me be more resilient.
So my optimistic, I do about a 5 or 6. But I do I do motivate people to push themselves, but I also motivate myself to do better.
I would feel like I'm a decently optimistic person. I feel like I probably rely on people like him to kind of push me forward, like he was saying, and motivate me when things do tend to get a little difficult. And so, I would rate myself probably 5 or 6 as well. So.
Great. Well, and I'm going to go into another panel question for you all, because part of resilience and working together requires sometimes we have to negotiate with others too. And again, this is another thing we talk about when we talk about leadership is how do we get to a win-win scenario. So when we're working with others, often we have to negotiate to come up with best solutions. So how do you negotiate with others?
I think understanding where someone's coming from is key when you're negotiating. When you're working with your teammates or classmates, you have to remember that there's always a common goal and you share that goal. But sometimes we have different ways of reaching that goal and you should embrace that and accept that. But negotiating with someone is always kind of meeting in the middle and making sure that both sides are satisfied. So.
Perfect. Here, Lexi, any thoughts on negotiation?
Oh, no. So I have some, as I mentioned earlier about the athletes, like I do negotiate. Is that correctly? Yay. So it's to keep our emotions in check. And it's like, let's try to take our anger out or upset out in a positive ways. As I said earlier, run. If you use the emotions in your sport, I used to do a lot of swimming, and I use my emotions to get in the pool, like sad, angry, or whatever. And sports can also help you balance your emotions.
I love that. Maddie, let's talk a little bit about self-confidence with school, sports, life, friends. So how do you handle self-confidence, and what do you do when you're not feeling the most confident?
It's a struggle sometimes. I think a lot of the time, self-confidence is the product of your preparation. And so being prepared and trusting in your abilities is going to help boost that self-confidence. I know we talked about earlier today that imposter syndrome and sometimes that voice in your head that's telling you you can't do something. So when I start hearing that voice, I've got to be able to kind of step out of body and say, is that voice true? And 9 times out of 10, it probably isn't. And so being able to kind of squash that voice down and listen to my preparation and my abilities that have led me to the challenge or the crossroads that I'm at, and relying on those skills is super important for me, both on the court and in the classroom.
Yeah, I love that. And, how many of you have ever heard fake it till you make it? Yeah, I hate that phrase. I hate it. Because that means you're not authentic. That means you're not who you really are supposed to be, that you're pretending to be someone you're not. And so we like to say, learn it till you earn it. So, keep going, keep pushing, keep practicing, keep doing it, keep showing up, and just keep learning, and you're going to earn that level that you're trying to get to. So, Mikey, being a student and an athlete, at times you take on so much and it can be overwhelming. How do you take care of yourself, and how do you handle your stress?
Oh Lord. So about a couple of weeks ago, there was midterms, and it's like everybody was stressed and stuff like that, and mostly like in how I conquer my stress or do stress management, and it's like sports, because it's actually really calming and really good for your health. It's not also good for your stress, but it's also good for your mind. When I was in high school or Delgado, swimming was like all I can do. And and calming and relaxing music. I am also a health messenger, and I do try to tell my other athletes has intellectual disability. And it's like, you got this, just calm down, take a deep breath, and just let it all out.
Perfect. That is great. I'm going to have you pass it to Lexi. I love that you use your sport to help you relax. I know for so many people that is so relaxing, whether it's, I just need to go to the batting cage and hit some balls, or I need to go shoot some hoops, or, we got some golfers in the room, go to the driving range, hit some balls. So important. Okay, Lexi, when things don't work out the way you plan, how do you cope, and what are some of the tips and tricks you can share with us?
Yeah, things don't go to plan a lot, I feel like. And that's at no fault. You can't really pinpoint it on one thing all the time. You can't, it's not always the fault of like lack of teamwork or anything. Like, life happens and people have to learn how to cope. And it's unfortunately not something that's really taught, because everyone's so different. There are different practices, but it's really finding the one that's good for you. Because another thing that Michael had said is, emotions, and how, I think coping is kind of, the way I understand it is, it's a recognition of your emotions and then the response to that. And Michael had mentioned healthy athletes and health messengers within Special Olympics. And there are 8 different disciplines within Special Olympics healthy athletes. And a lot of people don't know. They're like, why is Special Olympics in the health space? Well, we are the world's largest sports organization for people with intellectual disabilities. And with that, there's a lot of unmet health needs. And within the 8 disciplines of Special Olympics healthy athletes, Strong Minds is one of them, and that is focused on mental health and the mental well-being of all of our Special Olympics athletes. And different ways I see people cope. It's, breathing techniques, meditations, exercise, sports. It's really the matter of, finding what's good for you in the response to whatever emotion it is that you're facing.
We needed that during
You want to add something?
yeah, we needed that during COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Lexi, I'm going to ask you, going to take a quick right turn. I'm not going to take you too far. But I mean, you all are doing so many amazing things with Special Olympics. So can you talk a little bit about how people can get involved, and, student athletes? I know Maddie's done some work with Special Olympics. So, what does that look like, and how can people support, help, show up?
Yeah, thank you. That's one of my favorite questions to answer, because it's really, we're a very large organization and there's something for everyone. Special Olympics, like I said, is the largest sports organization in the world for people with intellectual disabilities. And with that, it's, we offer 32 Olympic type sports. So like any other Olympic sport that you see in like the Paralympics, the Olympic Games, Special Olympics does mirror a lot of those at the international level, the national, regional level, and all the way down to the local level. And if someone were looking to get involved, that local level that is the bread and butter of our organization, because I think the statistic before COVID was worldwide, there are 352 events every single day that happen in relation to Special Olympics. That's a ton of events. So whether it's volunteering or, being a coach, getting registered with your Special Olympics state program, or playing unified sports, hosting clinics. We see a lot of colleges and universities do that. A lot of colleges and universities play unified intramural sports or unified sports leagues. It's where, like, if we wanted to play tennis for a season, we could play tennis together for a season. You can really do anything. And what we look to our colleges and all of our schools to do is to look at what you're already doing. How can it be inclusive? A big question in the college space is, well, we don't have people on campus that have intellectual disabilities. You might, I bet you do. But that's when we would say, okay, well, let's look to your local community. How can we connect you with Special Olympics athletes in your local community? So step one of all of that is getting connected to your Special Olympics state program. Happy to do it for anyone in here. There's a quick Google search too. There's a state program finder on our website as well, where you can just, put in your location and it'll give you their website and contact information.
Perfect. I love that. So much opportunity. So as we're wrapping up, we love to ask this question. We ask this question in each session. We ask it a little different in each session, but Lexi, you got the microphone, so we will start with you. When we think about this session and we think about how we pivot and overall just how we are as leaders, at the core of it is strong relationships. We talked about emotions. We talked about, how we work together. So how do you intentionally work on building relationships with your peers, with other leaders, with people around you?
As I've progressed in my career and as I've grown up, and I think it really comes down to one of the biggest things that has been enforced with my time with Special Olympics, and one of the things that our athletes remind me of every single day, is to just recognize people as humans and recognize that you're nodding your head. Thank you.
I agree.
As that, just recognizing people as humans, because at the end of the day, you strip down people's titles, their status, where they come from, who they might be seen as. We all have challenges. We all have successes. We all want to have successes. We have dreams, goals, aspirations, and we just want to be included. So at the end of the day, relationship building, it's really near and dear to my heart. I am a big relationship kind of person. I love making new friends, meeting new people, talking, listening is another good part of relationship building too. But yeah, I went to a retirement party last week, which sounds fun. But the one thing I noticed is that every single person in the room had such a good relationship with that person. And at the end of it, I told her, I was like, this is exactly what I want for my retirement party. And why am I thinking of that right now? But really, those relationships are the day-to-day things that you're building your whole life. So it's really kind of a life skill to have.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it's about impact. Mm-hmm. So, Mikey, what are your thoughts? How do you build relationships?
Well, I used to be shy. I'm being serious. At the age of 6, I didn't talk because I was nonverbal because I was born a few months early, and I do have a speech impediment that's of my learning disability, but they can't shut me up now because I talk a lot. So to have the leadership and the peers, they're just family to me, because even though the state office and other athletes, they're just human beings, because as she says, it should be recognized as a special athlete is a person himself. And when I was little, it's I used to be called a lot of names. I used to be called retarded, and I used to be called a lot of stuff. And we have this program in Special Olympics that has in the R word, because it's more of we're trying to stop that. and all that because we are all a big family. And so I said work with peers and leaders to help them to connect more. It's like as for competitions, local events, or state competitions, or conferences. Conferences, yes.
There it is.
Yes, I had to think about it. Yes, I went to one a few months ago. And challenge your peers to work aside you, because it's actually when you challenge somebody, you're challenging yourself. It's like to work with them. And goodness. As again, use your competition as a motivation, as like to push yourself to be a better person and work and be a better group as one.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, Maddie. So how do you intentionally work on building relationships?
Yeah, I think the key word there is intentionally. Being in a relationship or making friends and working on those relationships has to be an intentional act that you're focusing on daily and as you're kind of maintaining and building that relationship. As student athletes, we have such a great platform to make new connections as we're here with, at this national convention, and some of us have never met before, and I feel like we already are all really good friends. And so just being able to use our knowledge and information like we learned from you today to really focus on building relationships is something that I work on. And kind of like Lexi, I feel like I'm a big relationship and people person. Those are really important to me. And then I like to make sure that people feel seen when I'm around them. And so I think it's kind of treat others the way you want to be treated in that sense. Making sure that people feel seen and safe and heard around me is something that's very important.
That is beautiful. And what a beautiful wrap up to the panel. And unfortunately, the wrap up to this series. It's kind of bittersweet that, we've spent really 6-7 months of learning these really important career and power skills. These skills that we've talked about through all of the sessions are so important, whether we're in the classroom and talking to our teammates in the classroom when we're working on projects or working with our professors, whether we're in the locker room or, on our field of play, whatever field or course that is, how we work with each other, how we work with our coaches, the trainers, even our competitors is so important. And then as student athletes, when you move into the boardroom, because you all are going to be there way sooner than you can imagine. And it's so exciting. So we encourage you to use these skills that we've talked about through these series, practice these skills. We talked with the group here at the National Convention, but we're going to encourage all of you that are watching this as well, really pay attention to these skills. Come up with examples of these skills, because at the end of leader, which is what we've been working through, there's a little S at the end, and the S is so what? So what are you going to do with these skills that you've learned? So what are you going to do with the skills that you have built through being an athlete, through being a student, through all of your work that you've done? And so now you've done the learning, and now it's your turn to take and do and to grow. So we so appreciate you all being here today. We appreciate everybody watching, everyone here in the room, and we're really excited to get your feedback and to learn about all the things that you learned and grew throughout this year-long series. So thank you so much. We're done.